And we want to get reaction to all of this now with our State House insiders. Antoine Seawright, our Democratic strategist, Dave Wilson, our Republican strategist tonight. Dave, we'll begin with you. Can Mayor Benjamin implement a mask mandate for students in the capital city?
There is a real question about that right now, based upon a proviso that was put into the state budget, which said that no state funds can be used to enforce or announce a state mandate. Now, the city of Columbia does not receive state funds, but the schools and the school districts that are within the city of Columbia do. So the question becomes one of who is going to be responsible for, one, announcing this, and two, the enforcement of it.
I think that's right. I commend the mayor for taking a bold move to preserve life. In fact, I could lean in and call my mayor being pro-life, because we know as the Delta variant makes its way through South Carolina, it's also impacting children. There was a recent article in the state newspaper talking about the local hospital here in Columbia, Prisma Health, the children's hospital, being at capacity with children because of this respiratory virus that's going on, which can be gleaned as possibly, Dave, COVID. So I think the mayor is making the right decision. I think the elementary and middle school students is probably a very wise decision. High schoolers are wise enough to make their own decisions. At the end of the day, this should have come from the governor's office and true leadership, because we know this virus is running rampant, but the governor then in turn in his press conference said he's going to leave it up to parents, because parents know what's best for their children, as if experts and professionals who specialize in this do not know what's best for all of us.
Well, I do. It is an issue of parents' rights on this particular case. And the reality of that situation, and Antoine is right in this, when you put it into a parent's hand, the parent is making the decision on that. And so what you have right now, and this is the big question, is whether or not the state is going to consider this an overreach. Now, the mayor does have an ability in emergency situations to call for certain health things to go on. The city council is going to have to debate this the next time that they meet. And so we're going to have a real question right now whether this is an issue of the parents' rights and responsibilities to care for their kids, or is it up to the government to make that decision? And there's going to be a big split among those.
The one thing I appreciate about my mayor, he's never been afraid to take on the status quo. When bump stocks and guns were an issue in this country after the Las Vegas shooting, Columbia, South Carolina was the first city in the country to ban bump stocks. Now, after that, of course, lawsuits came along, etc. But it was a bold move because we want to send a message about the seriousness of the issue. And if you don't have one who wants to, don't have a leader who wants to grab the bull by the horns for the sake of protecting the people they represent, then that's not a real leader. So I appreciate the mayor for doing that. The mayor's a lawyer, so I'm pretty sure he's thought this all the way through. He's applied the old Southern Carpenter's rule, Dave. He's measured twice and cut once on this. And so we'll see what happens. I would feel very much so more comfortable with state leaders in this state who want to make this a political issue and try to undo what's going to do what would protect life versus him not doing nothing at all. I also suspect you'll see more cities and towns follow his lead.
I think it's also, JR, then a real question, though, as to whether or not he has the jurisdiction to be able to do so in the school districts themselves. There's a real question that revolves around that, and you're going to see some school districts who are going to turn around and say, I don't know if I can do this.
Let me go ahead and ask you about Richland Senator Darrell Jackson, because yesterday he said that he wants state lawmakers to revisit how the state is handling the coronavirus. Could lawmakers conceivably come back before January and make some decisions on how to handle this virus that they're not doing right now? Antoine?
I think they will. In fact, we heard from the Senate Majority Leader, Senator Massey, by way of Twitter in response to Alan Wilson's opinion about the USC mandate. And he said he wants to fix the law because the proviso strictly says in writing that the state cannot mandate vaccines, but it doesn't say anything about the mandating of masks when it comes to our institutions of learning. That's K through 16. And so I think the legislature there will be an attempt to fix what could be fixed by way of law in September when they return to deal with some other matters, and we'll see what happens from that. I don't think this should be seen in a partisan lens, and I appreciate the majority leader and I also appreciate Senator Jackson, a Democrat. Hopefully these two can find common ground to work together to do some good so we can protect life in the state.
procedurally, there is a way for them to do this because they're going to be coming back and discussing some of the dollars that have been flowing in or will be flowing in, the $2.5 billion that are going to be flowing into the state from the federal government. And that's part of that is going to have to be, how do we address that? Does that money get distributed now? That's part of a budgetary process, but because the budget has passed and the budget has been signed by the governor, it is a question as to whether or not within what they call the sine die resolution, they can actually bring that back up as part of a legislative action that they can take that would be enforceable immediately.
All right, Dave and Antoine, thank you for your input tonight.